Thank you, Julia. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Tessa Sproule. I come here from Canada. I want to talk about public media. In this room, that probably is like, great. In other rooms, it's often, oh God, don't talk to me about public media. It's an obsession of mine. I worked at the CBC, which is our public broadcaster, for 20 years. And counterintuitively, I left because I feel that public media is the answer to the questions that we're trying to solve this weekend and outside of this weekend as well, and is the real, like a real revolutionary reimagining of what public media actually is at its core is the solution that I want to talk to you a little bit about today. We started with, we had gatekeepers and golden ages. It was publishers and print people, whoever could afford a barrel of oil in the beginning. Then it became broadcasters in the 80s and 90s that were really defining our experiences in seeing the world around us and understanding issues of the day. Now we're at a point where it really is algorithms that are driving that experience, particularly for an entire generation of audiences. And that's not turning around. These are pipes that are turned on that are not going backwards. It's not like we're going to go back into the time of sitting down in front of the TV and watching the news together. So what is happening tomorrow? What's going to happen tomorrow? Let's take a step, though, and think about where we are right at this moment. This image of the Napalm girl, I use this very deliberately because this is a thing that blew up last year for Facebook, and it was censored, and it went all the way up to the Prime Minister of Norway complaining about this, because it was censored since it was considered child pornography by Facebook's algorithm. And this is a real issue because this is what computers don't do that well. They see ones and zeros. They don't see the human messiness that we are, the nuance of what our emotions are, our joys, our sadness, our sorrows, our death, our life. And that's a real problem because technological solutions need to be mirrored with human judgment and human faculties to actually make an experience worthwhile. It's true that a squirrel dying in your front yard might be more important to you than kids dying and people dying in Africa, but that doesn't make it right that that's the only thing that you want to see. We know this. We're in this room today because we know that a diversity of perspectives is enormously important to democracy. And we know that the tools that we create shape us after we've created them. So what did I do? I went and I created a tool. so I have a company called Vubble. Like I said, I left 2 years ago from CBC. I was the director of digital there. But I felt that we weren't trying to be radical enough in our change that we needed to make. So I thought maybe I'll just, I'm at this point in my life now, I'll just leave and try to start something and figure out solutions to this on my own. Not on my own, actually, because I have 4 people now that I work with every day, and it is an enormous team effort beyond us as well. What we have created is a platform that uses algorithms for what they do well, filter the enormous hose of the internet to a point where it's actually humanly ingestible. And then we do that thing that, in newsrooms happens, where we have real human editors. They kind of are like a quasi-breed of journalist and librarian now, too. Take every piece of content and reshape it and organize it in the back end of the system to then give you a feed of content that's tailored to your interests. So that sounds great, but that's not anywhere near where we want to get to. Tailored to your interests is just going to continue to feed you stuff that you're already interested in. We know that that's the issue. What we want to get to, and we just secured funding this month actually to start building this, is a point where this repeats itself again and again and again. It starts to learn what you're interested in, and it starts to expose you to content that it knows that you need to see because it's slightly outside your comfort zone. So Facebook has its social graph. We like to call this our thinking graph. This is an incredibly simple interpretation of what we do, but bear with me. At the top, light. At the bottom, heavy. Closed, open. Think about every piece of content that you can imagine. Could it sit somewhere in there if somebody's actually placing it in that space? And can people sit in there? So this is me. Let's imagine it's a day or the day after another mass shooting. I'm a very strong advocate for gun control. So I'm not going to go and watch, well, you know what? I'll probably watch the John Oliver piece again that he talks about gun control because I find it fascinating how he frames everything. That's kind of already speaking to my interests. I'm certainly not going to pay much attention to the head of the NRA coming out and doing another speech about the right to bear arms. However, wouldn't it be awesome if I am exposed to a story that does present a point of view of a mom who feels she has to bring a gun in her purse when she goes shopping, at the mall because of some incident that happened to her. I might connect with her better because I actually have some sort of shared affiliation with the fact that she's a mom, she wants to protect her family. Something in there might actually connect me to that story, and it might actually expose me to other ideas. I'm not necessarily going to go along with her for the ride to go into that place at all, but at least I'll have a better empathetic understanding of her point of view, which allows me to have a conversation, not with her, but my uncle at the next dinner. And we can have a conversation together, and that's the huge important part. This is the thing that we're trying to create, is a replication of where your brain fires when you're slightly outside your comfort zone, when you're slightly challenged. Not extremely, just slightly. Like when you read something handwritten, you remember it better because your brain is functioning at a slightly different level than when you're just having something wash over you. So what we want is smart content discovery and distribution. We want education through transparency. That map that I'm showing you, it will be entirely transparent. You'll be able to see where you sit in the space, and you'll see where the story sits in the space and why the journalist / librarian placed it into that space. Because we don't think that audience agency is enabled by just a simple flagging system, red or green. It needs to actually encourage people to think about why they think about this idea. And then we also are very strongly avoiding any sort of trap around advertising as a revenue model for us. We actually do have paying clients for our existing system, which is an MVP, which is kind of crazy that we've actually got clients that are paying for us to use that. What we do is we create curated feeds for brands. So they actually want things strictly inside their bubble. So there's a value to that, and they pay us very nicely to do that for them. Now we want to spin that around and turn that into a public offering to the public citizens to be able to have a similar experience, but that's going to get them slightly outside their comfort zone when it's necessary to. So we do need a new public media. We need a media by the public for the public that has public at its heart, at its core. We need citizens to be driving the next experience in this space. And thank you.